All right, hey guys, it is Sam here. October 4th, middle of the day. Some interesting things happening here in our little crypto sphere. So I thought we might do a quick review and see if there were some things we could glean from what we're seeing today, and maybe a few things that we could talk about as lessons. This is Bitcoin, of course. This is the 4 hour on Bitstamp that we've been referring to regularly. And this is, this I would have to call this the primary count. One of the things about using Elliott Wave is I will often remind you, it's always just a potential roadmap. And as the market moves, things can change, and we have to adapt to what the market's doing. And it's always just a matter of probabilities and looking for patterns that we know tend to repeat and seeing if they are setting up to repeat again. So we kind of use the structure to try and make sense of what otherwise might appear as somewhat chaotic. So this is the primary count that we've been looking at, and we're just using some, really some rudimentary Elliott Wave principles here that markets trend in fives and they correct in threes, but those corrections can get somewhat complex, and that's potentially what we're seeing here. So we, of course, had the big 5 wave sequence up that was so beautifully technical, and then we've had this challenging correction here because it hasn't been easy, but the market is never easy. It never makes it easy on you. And, it's always trying to head fake you and, get you to make the wrong move at the wrong time. And, this is, kind of just the harsh reality of trading, right? In theory, it should be easy. Right, market's going to go up or it's going to go down. Why does this continue to be one of the most difficult undertakings anyone can approach? It's incredibly difficult to do this consistently over time. And, there are a lot of variables that go into it. Certainly money management, I would tell you, is number one. But your methodology and the consistency of approach would be, a close contender for, what determines your success over time. So we use the Elliott Wave structure because we know it repeats over time, and we look for these patterns. If we can identify them, then we put ourselves in a position for those probabilities to work in our favor. So, here again, we're just working from the idea that with a market that's had such a bullish run as we had all the way up into 5,000, that we're now going to correct in threes. And we've had the very clear ABC here, but because we didn't get an easy outcome here, it appears to be that we have some sort of complexity in this correction. So if we allow for a larger time frame correction, and again, we're sitting here on a 4 hour, but if we were to look at this on a daily, we might see it a little bit differently. But right now, the way we are drawing this, as we have the completed A wave, we now have potentially a completed B wave, and we are aware of the possibility that if indeed we've got the count properly identified, that this is our contender for resolution, that we would go down impulsively into some sort of a 5 wave sequence to complete this very large correction, right? And it looks large on the 4 hour, but if you put it on a daily, you get a little more perspective on it. So this is definitely a contender. This is the box that we drew up yesterday as a potential likely spot to find some support. Nothing radical here. I've got the outside median line. I've got the wave A, as I've labeled it here, this pivot setting up for some potential support, and we'd be looking for this to start unfolding in some sort of a structure that would be conducive to an A wave. So, either we're going to get an ABC, or we're going to get a zigzag, or we're going to get a leading diagonal. It remains to be seen. But we're looking for the clues to tell us that this sequence, this impulsive structure to complete the C wave, is underway. So I'm gonna look at this on a smaller time frame just to make a point of showing you a few things, right? So if you have any question marks in your mind about whether algos are in are in Bitcoin, and they follow this very predictable pattern of trading the 50s to the negative 23. Well, here it is on the 15-minute, and this is what's happened over the last, 12 hours or so. So, here was the correction we were looking at yesterday. It came exactly to the 50. We get a reaction. Now, if we draw from the high to this low, we go to the 50 to the tick, literally to the dollar, and then we go down. This was the box that we drew yesterday as a potential target, and we've got the negative 23 splitting the difference between the 618 and the 65. Right? It doesn't get any more precise than that. Now, does that mean that's the absolute low? No, but what I can tell you is that there were a group of traders and algos that were written to sell that. They sold it at the 50. They took it to the negative 23. We get a little reaction, but so. What you have there is algos taking profit, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that's our pivot and we won't go lower, but it just gives us, it's the footprints that we're looking for, right? That we've got algos in here. So we get a little reaction. Do we keep going? Well, we have conflicting algos, right? Because we had the 50 here that had the target. If that 50 is going to target, well, that target is much higher, right? Would be right here. So here's our negative 23 off of this 50, which is from the wave 4 low, right, to the wave 5 high, where we are retracing this entire 5-wave sequence. We get to the 50, bounce, and then we go to the other 50, right? It's always a fib fight, right, between the retracements. Well, so this 50 wins it, takes it down here, but we're still at the 61865. So there's going to be algo buying here. So you have the combination, right? It's perfect algo trading here. So we have the profit target at the last stand for buys in the same spot. So who's going to win this? Well, right now it looks a little bit like the bears are going to win it. But it remains to be seen if we're going to break this little box. But just I'm not necessarily trying to convey to you that this was a trade to take. What I'm trying to show you is that, we talk a lot about Elliott Wave and, when it's advantageous to, fine tune the structure and, can we glean some advantage from it when we see something clear like this, where we get a nice ABC and the wave 1 holds and then we get a target up to a 5. That's where it can be really useful. Well, keep in mind that the wave structure is always unfolding in a fib relationship between internal and external retracements, which is why we use the external or the alternate price projection to look for relationships in the external projections. So here, this is going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. If we go back to the larger time frame, right, we have the potential for this to move down a little bit lower. So the absolute low here is 41.82, and I've got the A wave here at 41.22. So a break here means perhaps we're heading down to the 786. It'd be interesting to see how this unfolds. So now if we look back here, right, so this is looking at it on a 4-hour, all we can really see clearly here is a 3-wave. But if we go down to the smaller time frame, we can see the 5-wave structure. Right, so we can see that we had potentially what we have here is an A wave, right? So some sort of, it doesn't even really matter what how you count that, but that's some sort of a 1 leading diagonal 1 into a 2. Here's the impulsive 3, which subdivides rather nicely. There's the 4 right to the 50 to the tick, and then we come down here. So in addition, right? So to be consistent, we'd look for a relationship between the 1 wave from the 4 wave, right? And we drew that up yesterday. We had the 100% here. That was, there's the third, caught it, right? And then we come down here. Now we have the pocket here. I know it gets a little harder to see, but the 1618 of the wave 1 from the 4 sits right in that cluster. So we had this big cluster of a target here, and we're going to struggle here to get resolution because this is potentially a completed A wave. So if that's the case, and I know when you see those kind of clusters, put a box around it. Come back the next day, you'll be amazed at what you see. All right, so if that's an A wave. Where is it? So if that's an A wave, we've got the possibility for this to be setting up. Now let me make it a little bit bigger and put the wave on it. let's go to okay, so that's a contender. That's a contender, right? We might. So how would we know? Well, we know there's going to be this. Since this is now complete, we go to that pivot, and again, we don't know if that's the low of this move, but it's a contender. Well, now we'd be looking for, this would be the likely spot where we'd look for a reaction right here, right? So we've got between the 50 and the 618 on the way back up, and we'd be looking for this to unfold in a three-wave structure to give us another clue. Right, that's all these are. There's all, it's always easy after the fact. While it's unfolding and we're trying to trade it, a little trickier. So, is this a buy here? Yeah, this you could absolutely make a case here because you can buy this with very low risk. Stop on the other side of the 65. That's we're sitting here at 42.02 and your stop would be 41.74. That's a very, very reasonable risk reward. And, first target on the upside, if we're just going to challenge the 50 here, is 43.26. Right? That's not a bad little short-term, punchy little, swing trade. Not bad at all, right? And we like to stay bullish. We're always looking for a bullish play. Now, we are potentially in the midst of a correction, but that doesn't mean you can't trade it. I look for the bullish side as well. So because I've got a completed structure here, there's the potential here. Now the safer way, if that's going to be the safer way to trade it, is wait for the A and wait for the B. Right? That's if you want to get confirmation that we've got a good pivot here, then we're going to react up here. And again, if we'd be looking for it in some sort of a diagonal or impulsive. Right, some structure here that we can work with where we can glean some advantage here. Like this was difficult to see, but it ends up being a five-wave structure. Now, if this holds and we get a reaction, then the safer trade would be to wait to get some structural data here and then wait for the retrace. And then you're trading for the C wave, which is likely to unfold in a five-wave sequence. So opportunity to add, you've got a clear target. Again, I'm just eyeballing here, but if you're down in the low 4200s up to 4350, that's nothing wrong with that trade. Nothing wrong with it at all. Okay, but right now we don't know if this is going to hold. We just know it's a contender as a likely pivot because of that fib cluster, because of the perfect fib draw here, negative 23. Does it hold? Well, only time will tell. All right, so what the broader point I wanted to try and make is the idea of allowing for an alternate count. So we've been very focused on this as our primary, right? So what happens, tends to happen, certainly it happens to me, is that we get kind of locked in on this as our primary account. And I'm sort of reminding myself at the same time I'm reminding you and trying to teach you, you have to allow for an alternate count because right now it's just hypothetical. It could work. This could work, but this is a lot of projection. This is a lot of maybe, could be, do we know? We don't really have enough data. We're starting to get some clues because this is moved in some sort of in a five-wave sequence, right? It ends up it's impulsive, right? But it could have just as well been a diagonal. But we're getting a five-wave structure here, which implies potentially that we've got an A wave in. So, but let's look at this maybe from a different perspective and see if we're not, being blinded by our preference for that count because it makes sense to us. Well, here I've broken this down in a little bit more degree, right? So here's our big sell-off, right? So it all you can count it out just beautifully. So we get the big ABC, we get this unfolds, and here's our five-wave sequence down for the C, and what's creating such a problem here, as I've mentioned several times, is this three-wave structure, which would have been just a perfect. This could have been the A, this could have been the B, and then had we gone down for a C, that would have been just easy to spot. Well, the market's never easy, never. Trust me. It never makes it easy on you. Well, what this ends up being, right? We may not know for, could be months before we can go back with the benefit of hindsight and count it out and go, well, of course, that was ABC, then we had an X wave, and it was complex, and it really, that isn't as important to us when we go back. That's really more for Elliott academics. We'll let them sort out what it is. What can I see and what can I say with certainty as a trader? Where can I, go back to just basics? Well, if I draw from there to there, from low to high, from this three-wave structure, I can clear all I did. I went to a 50, and then I went right to target. Right. So how that unfolds, that's where adding some Elliott, there's advantage. But this is a solid pivot. Right, we had exactly what we'd look for, and really you had it. Well, this was shallow here. We had the 382, couldn't get to the 50, doesn't quite get to the negative 23 here. So when we pull finally, as is often the case, there'll be 3 swings to complete it. Then we get this ABC that unfolds in this, and we get a nice little impulse 5 down here for. This is some sort of a good pivot. Well, look what happens from that pivot. As an Elliottician, right? Putting a wave count on this. Look how absolutely perfect that is. Now, what this is in the larger context, maybe isn't as important as we're trying to create. Maybe we're creating our own problem. We've got to allow for this alternate count because it's so technically perfect. So look at here. So if I just look from my low here, my 50% low, right, and I look here, well, I've got an absolutely perfect Elliott wave sequence there. Here's my very pretty 1, subdivides into 5, a 3-wave 2. Then from there, I get subdivision into my 3-wave that is, again, absolutely perfect. Here's my 5-wave 1, a little 3-wave 2. Here's my 5-wave 3, here's my 3-wave 4. Here's my perfect 5-wave sequence up into the 5. I mean, from an Elliott perspective, that's a novice Elliott trader could count it out. It's absolutely textbook perfect. So we have to allow for the possibility that all that we know from our solid pivot, from our 50% pivot that went to target, we could very well just be doing this, an ABC, and just correcting this entire impulsive structure. Now, if that's the case, we may not be going down to new lows. We may have just put in the A wave here. Look, we've come right to this is the 233, just a fib number. So we've come right to that. And now what would we expect here? We'd expect for the A wave to land somewhere between the 3 and the 4. Well, it does that just beautifully. We're sitting right at the 233. If this is, note here, I'm saying that's the 3rd wave of this 1-2. Okay, so we'd want to consider the all the way halfway back down here. But if that's the 3 wave, we'd want to pull from the 2 wave and look for that potential 4. Right? Well, where's the likely candidate here? Right? If we're going to pull, if that's the 3 of this larger scale 4, well, we're gonna be targeting. Let me draw a few that you'll want to pay attention to. So certainly here, that's between the 38 and the 50 of the smaller draw of the wave 2, right? So here's 2, here's the all the way back, and you always look here to where they line up, to where they start, right? So here's the all the way 50, here's the wave 2 50, and the wave 2 38, right? So it looks like maybe that A wave here. We're going to hit some structural support here, but that's certainly a contender because I got a nice 5-wave sequence here. Now you can see it a little better here on the 1 hour. So I got this is just textbook Elliott trading, right? It's the A wave. Now I will be surprised if we don't go now into a 3-wave B. And where would we be looking for that to go? All right, so we can start to gives some credence to this alternate count. So potential target here when a B wave can go deep, or can retrace more, I should say. So we can go up to higher here. So perhaps the 618 to the 786 likely target here. You know, here's that wave 3 high lining up just perfectly with the 618. That's a contender. Do we get there? Now, if this keeps going, do we invalidate? No, we really don't. This would have to really start to accelerate. But now what we're looking for is a pivot that we can work from with an expectation that we're going to put in a B wave. And whether or not it's a B wave on our primary or a B wave on this alternate, which is the more bullish count, right? Because this is implying that we're just going to put in a 4, you know, here around 4,000, and then we're going to scream up to a 5, which would be, you know, up in the well above 5,000. Let's put it that way, well above 5,000. So either way, the probability here is that we're going to put in some sort of a pivot here because we've completed this 5 wave, and then we're going to start a 3 wave sequence. So either count allows for that. The question mark becomes, in assuming this is what unfolds, the question mark becomes what happens down here at 4,000. You know, and we aren't going to know for a while. We aren't going to know until we see, you know, do we get a B wave here? Does this thing keep going? But I guess the point is, I would encourage you to keep alternate counts right next to each other, so you can watch them unfold and say, you know, where is a trade? Where can I find one? Right now, there's the assumption being that the bias is to the bullish side in case the thing just rips. We're looking for potential trade. So there is a trade sitting right there. Right there. Very low risk, right? We just looked at it on the 15-minute, right? So you have that potential there into the B wave, but I'd be following with a stop, you know, anticipating that we're likely to hit some resistance up here when we go back up to challenge the 618 if we get there, because we could stall at the 50. So here, you know, you got a pretty large pocket here. What's the clue? If we go in 3 waves and then we start to pull away from it. Then, you know, if you don't want to be short Bitcoin, you wait for for this to unfold and see where we are when we get back down to 4,000. Again, if we get there. Right? How am I doing on time? That's 22 minutes. I'm going to wrap there just because I don't like these to be too long. So I've got a few other that I want to show you. I'll do that in a different video, but I just wanted to make that point of showing you the alternate count. Keep these side by side so you can watch as they unfold and get an idea of where you can find advantage, where the structure is allowing for a trade, and if you just want to be a buyer, where the ideal times are. Okay, I'll wrap there. Back with another one later.